Morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Environmental Social Justice. Today we have a very special guest, Miss Monique Allen. She is with the Garden Continuum, and today we're talking about her book called Stop Landscaping and Start Life-Scaping. So welcome to the show, Monique.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm incredibly excited to be with you both.
Monique, I am just so excited to be talking to you about this. I'm the director of water for South Los Angeles, and we are actually putting together these types of programs in the inner city. My staff and I have been working really diligently getting the word out to make sure that the residents have some alternatives with the drought that we're facing in South LA. So I'm all ears for it, and we'll probably want you to come out and do some stomping for us and letting people know how important this is, not just during drought season, but at all times.
Yeah. No, this is a lifestyle change that we have to do.
Yes,
it is.
And, Monique, when I read your book, I realized everything I did in my own backyard was wrong. I didn't plan. I just said, pretty, great, plant it, died. So could you please tell the audience why biodiversity matters, planning matters, knowing what you're doing matters?
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you both so much. And you know what, honestly, Wendy, like just coming right out and saying that, you tried all this stuff and it all felt wrong or it all failed. Thanks for that vulnerability, because I honestly believe that's why I named the book Stop Landscaping, Start Life-Scaping. I mean, clearly I landscape every day. My company is a landscape company. We specialize in sustainable regenerative landscaping. But the ultimate problem is that when you take something like landscape that gets super popular, it's wonderful that it's gotten popular because more people feel empowered to do it. But the negativity of popularity is that things become commoditized. They go very fast. There's a lot of profit motive. And what we know very well about nature is that nothing in nature is fast except destruction. So when you're building in nature is very slow. When you go fast in nature, it's on the opposite slide of succession. So succession is time bound and it's very slow and it's generative and it keeps building. And then something negative happens and it's like whoosh, you down, right? There's a fire, there's a flood, there's a drought, there's something. It's intense, it's big, it's fast. Now you're looking to the regenerative power of nature to build the slow climb, start that slow climb back up again. So inadvertently, I don't think anyone set out to do evil to nature, or maybe they did, but I'm gonna wish that they didn't and hope in my heart that they didn't. But when you start to say, we can do this fast, we can do this in a weekend, we can do it quick, it's a makeover, it's this, it's that, it's fancy, it's fun.
Yes. It's not a weekend. Trust me, I tried.
It's not a weekend project, right? It's a sea change. It's a life decision. It's a long game. And I mean, I didn't know that when I started. I've been doing this for 3.5 decades. Trust me, in the first 5 years, I didn't know. I just followed what I was told. What I began to see was that the commoditization of the industry creates two sort of competing truths. One is featurescaping and the other is deadscaping. So featurescaping is when, I want a tree and, I need hydrangeas and I want a hot tub. Oh, and I need a fireplace. Oh, and I want that tree. And it's like, it's these sort of disconnected things that we put in and we're driven by wow, right? So if you look at the 3 tenets, organized, healthy, and wow, we're fed the wow story, right? Media gives us wow, sales gives us wow, but we also love wow. We love pretty. So if you see that incredible rose and you're like, oh, I want that, and you bring it home, it's, you're feeding into this. So if you aren't prepared with an understanding about organization and an understanding about health, the leading with the wow can
right. I broke every rule. I mean, I won't even get into my disasters because they're numerous. But one of the things with your book is, you talk about biodiversity, and we need to get rid of monoculture. Could you just explain to the public in a simple manner what that means and why it's important?
Absolutely. So, and I'll do it with a story because I think it's the best way to do it. So, I live in Massachusetts, which is in the northeast of the United States. And we have, so Boston is our capital. And then we've got a city that's toward the west called Worcester. And Worcester did a lot of very fast growth and planted a lot of street trees because it was a good thing to do. We're doing roads and sidewalks, and we want trees so that we can shade. So all good intention. So they picked the tree that was very easy, fast growing, resilient to urban conditions. And then they planted that tree absolutely everywhere. And then we had an infestation of Asian longhorn beetle. I'm pretty sure it was Asian longhorn beetle. And it decimated the trees. Yeah. And it wasn't one tree in one street. It was all trees in all streets in a whole quadrant of this city. This happened in Cambridge with Dutch elm disease because they lined the Charles River and Memorial Drive with elm trees. Yes, it is beautiful. I get it. It is beautiful to have a monoculture, to have that simplicity on your eye. But what we need to understand is that monoculture on its own is dangerous because when there's demise, it's gone. Huge, right? So what we want to do is not just throw out monocultures, because there are moments like if I'm doing an orchard, I'm going to possibly create my orchard in waves of monoculture for pollination and cross-pollination or something like that. But I'm not going to have that for miles and miles and miles. Then I'm going to flip it. I might put another vegetative crop underneath. One of the things, like with supporting bees, if I only have the culture on top, let's say the flowers of the apple trees that need to be pollinated by the bees, and I bring bees in boxes and I say pollinate at the moment when these trees are flowering, but then I give the bees nothing else. So I've got to pack them up and move them.
Oh, right.
How weird is that? What if instead the bees are permanent residents of this farm? I have the apple trees, and then below it, I have clover, and I have mountain mint, and I have all sorts of ephemeral plants coming, all before the apples do their thing, and then during, and then even after. Yeah. So I support the whole cycle of that bee's life while supporting my apple crop.
Well, how easy is this to do, though? Do we need to hire, big landscaping firms, or does your book tell us, exactly what plants will mix and match? What's water efficient? What's like the easiest way for the simple people that do not have a green thumb, have a red thumb, because anything that we put out there is going to die? What's the simplest way for us to get the word out and make sure that what we're doing and what we're buying actually motivates us to keep this going?
Yeah. My simple, straightforward answer is start small, because when we're working with nature, we want ease, we want flow, and we want simplicity in the sense that it makes linear sense to our brain. But the truth of nature is that it will move into complexity, and it will move into sort of dynamic change. So what I did today only holds true for the moment. It's not like building a kitchen where, I got to clean my kitchen, but like you don't come home after a week vacation and your kitchen looks different, right? You leave your yard and you go to the beach for a week and you come back and you're like, oh my goodness, what just happened, right? There was no rain, so things have died, or there was a ton of rain and a ton of sun and everything grew. It changes. So I would say that my answer is that we start simple. And what I say to my clients that are very interested in being active participants in their land is to go for the small win. So do the thing right outside your front door or right outside your main door that you will go in and go out on a daily basis. You will see it, you will stop, you will notice, you will have a hose handy, And what you will do is make a commitment to the small thing. And what will
Hmm.
happen is your confidence builds. And as you have the winner effect in your brain will start happening. And this is a neurological fact. When we win, we believe we can win. So then we go and we take another chance and we try to win again. The danger is when we bite off more than we can chew. When we bite off a project that is so big that we need all that landscaper help and we need all that heavy lifting, and then we have no plan for the week after it's done or the month after it's done or the year after it's done. If we can look at every single project as dynamic and it's transformational, then
Yeah.
we can actually have a really good conversation with ourselves and say, how much can I handle from a budgetary standpoint, from a heavy lifting standpoint, and from a long-term commitment standpoint? And if you want to do it alone, you look at that long game and you say, well, I can take 100 square foot to a 200 square foot area each year and develop it out. And I plan on being in this house for 20 years. So, wow, I'll be able to do a lot. And that's the mindset shift.
Now, I remember from your book, you had said that you and your husband bought like a very large plot of land and you dove in.
Yep.
And I mean, with your experience, of course, you can handle it. But that's a daunting task to, I think it was a couple acres that you guys decided to work on.
Yeah. So we have 2.5 acres and we're landscapers. So we certainly were able to dive in and we sort of neglected the house. We bought a house that was enough for, and we've since done tons of work on the house, but first things first, we knew the things that we wanted to do. And some of the things were really small. I wanted a perennial garden. I wanted a medicinal garden. Some things were big. We decided to move our driveway because it made no sense where it was.
Yeah. The visualization of the way you described how you did your driveway, that was beautiful what you did.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. And it was tactile. We used that driveway for a couple of years before we knew how to move it. So there is something about, and this is where we go into Life-Scaping, is that we live our process as opposed to saying, I'm just going to move my driveway as a project. Instead, I want to actually transform the process of how I enter and exit my property on a daily basis, that arrival experience, that experience of coming home from a hard day, a day that maybe challenged me more than I expected, and to get to the mouth of my driveway and feel every single energetic fiber of my being and my soul just go, oh, I'm home.
That's hugely important too.
It's hugely important.
People don't understand how important that is.
Right. You could live in an apartment and have beautiful planters and a little teeny planting in front of your main apartment door. You could have a deck and have beautiful, just like window boxes attached. I did this when I lived in Jamaica Plain. I had these window boxes that were attached to all of the railings, and I bought these bamboo screens so that I didn't have to see my neighbors. I just saw a head, where the trees were. And I would come home and I would just have a glass of wine or a cup of iced tea, and I would go out there and I would just sit. I had this super comfy chair. My dog would go out there, and I would just chill for like a half an hour. I needed to transition from the craziness of work to home, and I used nature to do that. And that's the power that I think we all have the ability to tap into, regardless of how much space you actually have.
That's so healthy. I mean, just being the ability to come home from work and de-stress is the most important thing you can do in your day, especially if you have a high stress job.
Yes.
But I'd like to transition to water resources.
Yes.
Since that is now, we have a drought in California, Massachusetts, not so much, but it is something I think nationwide, if not worldwide, needs to be addressed.
Absolutely. And we actually are in drought conditions now, and it's gotten really bad here. We were in the high 90s last week. Today is actually beautiful. It's probably mid 80s and it's much drier. But next week it's shifting and we're going to be back in the 90s, high humidity, and they're predicting that we'll break 100 for a couple of days. So we are absolutely in a drought. I feel for California and everything that, you go through. Actually, Joy, my daughter, just moved to California for an internship at SpaceX. And so she lives in Hermosa Beach and is
Ah,
working in Hawthorne. So I'm going to be there twice. I'm going to be there in August and
Better
September.
call
So
on
we'll
us.
talk.
you definitely do. I'll have to give
Yeah.
you tours of water plants, and we talk about drought landscaping, which is a major part of my agency, and that's just really, really the topic of conversation right now with the way the drought is going. So,
Yeah, it's so
uh,
important.
yeah, we're getting a lot of people that are upset about not being able to water because their grass is going to turn brown. So I'm hoping that together, you and I can, and Wendy can turn those people's mindset around and let them know
Yeah.
that beauty can be found anywhere, any way that you landscape in an
Yeah,
efficient
it
manner.
doesn't have to be a lawn.
It
Yes.
doesn't have to be. And we also like, so there's two things. So there are each zone is going to have the plants that are best for that zone, for that microclimate of, let's say, the United States. In our area, lawn isn't really such a terrible thing because we have enough rain to support lawn. The problem is less about the plant choice. So for instance, a lot of people want like that golf course lawn. Instead, what we try to do is get them into a fescue lawn or a lawn that has clover in it. So a lawn who's going to be a nitrogen hog, put a plant that's a natural nitrogen fixer that will move nitrogen from the air to the soil into the lawn. Now we can have this cohabitation. So we have to change the mindset about a flat green surface that I can kick a ball on. That's not a bad thing to want. We don't need a ton of it. And we can have it non-monoculture. We can have it as a diverse culture where it's cross-supportive.
Ooh.
The one thing that is often missing in the water conversation that I find is that we're talking about the plant choices, the native plants, the communities of plants, and then forgetting to have that conversation about the environment within which the plants live, which is the soil. So in the deadscaping version of what I was seeing in the very commoditized landscape was that when you go quick and dirty, you don't really give a whole lot of consideration to the soil. And the couple of things that happen is, one, huge compaction from construction and being on the soil, which will actually kill the biology in the soil or make it unlivable so that they will move out. And second, there a lot of times what you'll see in large sort of development areas is that they'll strip the O horizon, they'll even strip part of the A horizon, remove it and sell it, and then build the house, then import what they're calling that top level A horizon, maybe just a couple inches, and throw a lawn on top. Well, that's never going to, I don't care how much water you throw on that lawn, it will never work. It will
It's
never
dead.
work. So the key really, at least in my area, and it's going to be a little different in California, but I'm sure there are people that know the soil strata in California. We want to make sure that we're considering the soil in the same mindset that we consider our gut. So if you think about a human being, if I'm going to eat food, but my gut doesn't work, I don't get the nutrients, I don't get the hydration, and I'm not going to be a vital human. I need my entire digestive system to work. The soil is the functional digestive tract for all your plants because they don't have a digestive tract. So you are looking at combining these two life forces together to create an environment, an ecosystem that can deal with the water it has. Now, if we separate the fact that we're in climate change and we're getting drier and drier, and it's really a struggle, and we look more at the difference between a more arid climate and a more sort of wet or tropical kind of climate, you realize that plants have already chosen where to live. So now if we do the work, if you're going to do, let's say, your small win 200 square foot area outside your main door that is going to give you your beautiful exhale moment when you get home. Step one is to understand what the soil is like there. Step 2 is to understand if you need to make adjustments to that soil so that you can actually plant the plants that want to be in that environment, because you may have the wrong soil and buy the right plant and it doesn't work. Or you may have the right soil and the wrong plant and it doesn't work. So what you're looking for, think about planning the best event ever. You're going to look at the venue, you're going to look at the entertainment, you're going to look at the food, and then you're going to look at the guest list. You got to look at all of the pieces. It's the same when you create an ecosystem. You have to consider all those pieces.
So it's no shocker to me that when I tried to plant Lily of the Valley in California, it died.
Hey.
That would be me picking the guests before anything else.
Yes, that's great. Yes, perfect. That is exactly it. So when we're talking about the soil, I often tell people that like the soil is really the venue.
Yeah.
And so you have to make sure that it has the capacity to carry all of the biological life, levels of organic matter, the kind of drainage and all of that, that's going to make use of water, which is so precious, work. Because throwing more water doesn't work. We know this. We see the fail points of throwing more water. So the question, the problem that we're trying to solve is how do we use as little water as possible and have it have the highest impact possible on the ecosystem that we built? And each area needs to have that question asked. And I believe that anybody can learn it. I really do. I don't believe this is only for the professionals. I think that the information is available to learn it.
This changed my life. The second I started reading this, and I'm like, I did everything wrong. I mean, I even took my little notes. I dog-eared it, so anyone who loves books is going to hate me. But I scribbled in the margins. This is a manual. This is an active manual of how to properly do your landscaping, life-scaping. And please don't use artificial turf, people. That kills the soil faster than anything. So
yeah, and don't use like we tell people, don't use weed fabric. Like the only place weed fabric should ever be is like between rocks, like on a hard level, compact rocks, another level, and then your rocks on top. Like that's fine. I have no problem with that. But weeds will grow in the fabric. It doesn't work.
That's actually good to know. Because we have the rocks in our front yard. And we put down the weed berry because the rocks just kept sinking in the soil. And we're like, oh, that explains that, logic.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so true. The weed paper, as I like to call it, does absolutely nothing over the long haul.
Right. It's only a short-term fix.
Yeah. But so wrapping up with Monique, I would love for the people to know how to find you, how they can buy your book. I know it's everywhere. And, best way to get in touch with you, because you are a master landscaper, lifescaper. How to help people.
Thank you. Well, the book is everywhere. I tell people to do something like, Google Indie Bound and see if your local bookstore has it, because I love local bookstores. They're just the best. And so if you can get it that way, great. If you can't, you can actually get it right on my website, thegardencontinuum.com, and I will send it to you. I buy it directly from the publisher. I will send it to you and I will sign it for you. So that's a great way to get it. And then I'm on Instagram. That's kind of my happy place. So I have the Garden Continuum on Instagram and Monique.Allen on Instagram. So I toggle between working in the Life-Scape space and building landscapes and talking everything landscape. And I toggle into compassionate business building and working with trade professionals to help them build their businesses. And so that's where I am on Monique.Allen, talking about how to build a regenerative business.
I love that. I absolutely love that. So thank you for your time today. I know it's busy for you. It's summer. You've got a booming business, very successful business, actually. So on that, thank you so much. Please buy her book, guys. It's been a lifesaver for me. Yeah, no, it's fantastic. I mean, again, I marked the hell out of it. Anyway,
I love that. See, like even my book is marked to death. Like I love to write in books, so I think you did. That makes me so happy.
As I'm doing it, I'm like, people are going to hate me.
Ooh, that's great.
So guys, thank you so much for joining us. I'm Wendy Nystrom, your host of Environmental Social Justice, with my co-host Joy Langford, our special guest Monique Allen, the writer of Stop Landscaping and Start Life-Scaping. Take care, everybody. Have a wonderful day.